Well, the defeat of the Conservative parties in the Australian federal election on Saturday night caused widespread despair. The Liberal and National parties, of course, went down to the incumbent Labor government led by Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, which, in my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of people, is the worst government in Australia's history. And here they were being given another 3 years to wreak all sorts of havoc and deluded and self-interested policies. Now, I'm happy to report that on Saturday night, I actually published a piece advising people not to feel so much despair and to see this as actually an opportunity. There were two good reasons to actually feel good about this. One is that being in opposition is actually a whole lot more fun. Being the outsider to the powers that be, to the incumbent government, is a fun place to be. We're the pirates, we're the outsiders, we're the rebels, telling the government what they should be doing. The other optimistic aspect of this result was that this government is inevitably going to implode. It can't afford to implement the agenda it's promised to do so, and that's financially, and on a more economic aspect. Its obsession with net zero and the environment is going to destroy what's left of Australian industry, as well as Australia's culture. It's not a particularly traditionally Australian cultural government, so to speak. Now, that piece was very generously shared by my guest, George Christensen, on a couple of platforms, and it went ballistic. There's a good chance that if you're watching this video today, it's because George introduced me to you. So welcome to my podcast, and I'm here to say thanks to George and to discuss where to from here for Australia's Conservatives. George, welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Fred, and mate, all kudos to you. That was an excellent piece that you wrote, and it summed up what a lot of people had been thinking about this, that with the Labor light policy agenda that was rolled out once again, we probably did dodge a bullet, because we don't want Labor light. We want full-throttle conservatism, and it's the only way that we're going to restore this great country to the country that it should be.
Yeah, it is a great country, and that's why we despair so much. I mean, Australia just has so much potential, and yet the Liberal Party, and to a lesser extent, I think the National Party, have just torn themselves apart as the natural representatives of the Australian majority. Now, you were a member of the Australian Parliament as an LNP. I should have pointed out also to the viewers that you're up in Mackay in Queensland, up near the Whitsundays, and now a member of council, I believe, in the Mackay Council.
For all my sins.
What is it? How you can trace back the destruction, the self-destruction of the Liberal Party to a particular time and place, can't you, George?
You certainly can. It was the day that Malcolm Turnbull knifed Tony Abbott. As Craig Kelly said on X the other day, or Twitter as it was called, that's the day the music died. And quite frankly, I think a lot of us on the Conservative side of the ledger would say that is the day that the rot started to set in. And what we've seen is certainly not Peter Dutton's fault, at least exclusively. What we've seen is a party that had some vestiges of values when Abbott was leader. He went to that 2010 and 2013 election saying he was going to axe the carbon tax, he was going to stop the boats. That he put forward an agenda that resonated with the public, and it was a conservative agenda, and he was elected for it. He almost got in 2010. He definitely got in 2013 in a landslide. And what happened was that the values went out the window, chasing polls, chasing focus groups, chasing, who knows, catchy slogans that, jobs and growth, innovation, all that sort of jargon that sounded like, someone had spent too long at a bloody Silicon Valley conference and come back with a word bubble and just spewed it onto a document and said, here's our policy agenda. It showed that what happened there is a whole heap of bedwetters kicked out the elected leader of the Liberal Party, someone who stood for values, and put in someone who was vacuous, who was like the proverbial dog chasing the proverbial car. When he finally caught it, he had no idea what to do with it. And that now speaks volumes to the Liberal Party. They are bereft of values. And I would say one last thing, Chris. I heard during that era where we went from Abbott to Turnbull to Morrison, and I'm pretty sure it was under Morrison, that I was at some event, and Christopher Pyne, who was a Turnbullite, was up there bragging that the Liberal Party was now this election-winning machine. And I thought, yeah, he's right. It's no longer a political movement. It's now a machine. It's a conduit to get people into Parliament. It is an Uber ride politically to Canberra. And that's all it is. There's no values behind it. There's no principles. And you know what? The funny thing is, it stopped winning because when you're running a machine on nothing, it eventually wears out.
Yeah, good point. Well, to sort of magnify that is the allegation which you've put up again on your Substack, and it's often said behind the scenes in conservative circles that the Liberal Party has become perhaps, if it ever was an election-winning machine, it is now an election-winning machine for lobbyists, not representing their electorates, but vested interests. What evidence is there, George, that this is happening? And can you pinpoint any particular MPs who might be guilty of this?
There's a lot of grift that goes on with inside the organisational Liberal Party, the factional warlords. And look, to save you and I from defamation suits, we won't name names, but because these people have very deep pockets, my friend, you know that. But there's a certain faction there in New South Wales which has got its tentacles deep within the Liberal Party and deep even within the Parliament, wrapped firmly around some of the candidates that they put there. And these people are lobbyists. They know how to work the system. They know how to get money out of big corporates to go and see the people that they installed into Parliament. So it is all a big grift. And I've got to say that these people were at play during the election, and they did not want Peter Dutton to become Prime Minister. They did not want their own Liberal Party to actually win government. And why is that? Because for them, the New South Wales Liberal is the centre of gravity. It is the centre of power. It is everything. Peter comes from the LNP, and that would have taken away the centre of gravity, the centre of power for these people. And I think that, these people, by and large, are known to be what they call moderates. They're anything but. They're leftists. That's what they are. When they say the word moderate or modern liberal is code word for a leftist. And, they didn't want someone who was a right-wing leader. And I got to say, my only criticism of Dutton that I'll give, because many other people will give criticisms of Peter Dutton, is that we didn't see him kick too much off the right foot during the election. I think that was more of the people that surrounded him and corralled him and stopped him from doing that. But nonetheless, even though he wasn't setting a foot right, these people did not want someone who was instinctively right-wing in the top job.
I think we need to just sort of dwell on that for a second, George. People within the party didn't want the party to win because it wasn't their chosen faction. I mean, are these people actually prepared to wait another 3 years, or probably more likely 6, to get their way, rather than sort of half measure getting Dutton in and trying to work from within then?
Matt, I'll give you a scoop because I haven't put this forward anywhere yet, so you're the first.
Yeah.
I met with a significant donor to the Liberal Party yesterday, and he told me that during the middle of the campaign he had a visit from someone, again, I won't name names, but a head honcho within the New South Wales Liberals, and it was another attempt to shake down more money out of this lucrative donor. And he looked at him straight and he said, "Mate, I'm hearing things that makes me very worried. Don't you guys want Peter Dutton to be Prime Minister?" And the bloke who he was meeting with, again, a head honcho out of the New South Wales Liberals, just stared at him blankly, looked down on the table, looked back up, and changed the topic. He couldn't even bring himself to lie about the situation. And from that bloke quickly got up and walked out of there, the donor, and didn't give a cent more.
Well, that leads very conveniently onto the next question. That's an alarming anecdote, I've got to say. But the next question is: can the Liberal Party be reformed? And if its major donors are walking out the door, the answer is probably no.
Well, look, I hope it can be reformed. I mean, in South Australia, Alex Antic has done a good job at transforming the state division there. Um, I'm I'm torn between what the answer is. I'm not, some wise wizard coming down from the mountain that's going to tell everyone that this is the way forward to restore conservatism. I am as befuddled as the next person as to what the hell we do now. But you know, Alex Antic has done something in South Australia. There's some people who I was speaking to yesterday say, yes, but wait until they get near an election and there's a federal intervention and suddenly all that will be undone. So that's possible. There's people who are talking about reforming the LNP. Maybe it can be done. The Libertarians have a standing joke, the Liberal Democrats, a lot of whom were formerly Liberal Party members, when they hear someone talking that language, they say, there's another one who wants to change it from the inside. And why do they have that joke? Because they all went into the Liberal Party with that view, let's change it from within the inside, and quickly found out that just ain't possible. I tried to actually change the direction of the LNP in some respects, and I didn't succeed either. They've gone more to the left as time goes on.
The other side of that, George, is the perception, the brand. I mean, the brand has copped an enormous blow after Saturday. Not many people have any faith in the Liberal or National Party brand anymore.
Mm. Well, mate, and again, that's a culmination of things. It's not just we can't pin all the things on that election loss and Peter Dutton. I mean, Scott Morrison, obviously, during COVID, the reaction that we had to the pandemic. Yeah. The whole idea that it was a party that based itself on the principles of freedom and liberty, that went out the window for popularity in polls and fear. And, then I refer back to the Malcolm Turnbull situation where it was just complete and utter vacuousness. A story that I regaled on X. No, sorry, not on X, in my newsletter, nationfirst.substack.com, if people want to subscribe, if they haven't already. Yep. Bob Katter was looking like he was going to be in pole position after the 2016 election, where Turnbull just scraped across the line. And I hadn't heard from Turnbull at all, just about. I don't even think he'd said a word to me, probably in the year beforehand, and probably in the 3 years beforehand, apart from in party room meetings where he had to. And suddenly I get a phone call. Malcolm Turnbull on my phone. Oh, holy moly, the Prime Minister's calling. So I answer it. And here he is wanting to know what deals can be done with Bob Katter, because people knew that I was Bob Katter's mate. And I got to tell you, he would have been willing to do anything and everything, because it was just about the proverbial dog holding on to the proverbial car that he didn't know what to do with. It wasn't just Malcolm. The party did that. The party knifed Tony. The party put in Malcolm. The party knew it was all vacuous, but they did it anyway. And the lesson that was learnt is that you can knife people, you can get away with it, you can betray the base, you can get away with it, and you can go into this sort of vacuous, values-free zone and get re-elected, because that's actually what happened in 2016, even though it was just getting re-elected. So that's what they learnt. We thought there was going to be a turnaround when Scott Morrison came to the fore. He was the great white hope for the Conservatives, but COVID just showed that was all completely and utterly wrong. And again, not naming names, but someone said to me that there wasn't too much difference between Turnbull and ScoMo, and I thought that was a bit rough, but they said, well, Turnbull just believes in himself, ScoMo believes in God and himself. And look, that's really rough. I didn't say that. Someone else did, who I won't name, but someone pretty famous that everyone would know. And it's an interesting insight. But the reality is there was still no agenda when Scott Morrison was there. it was like a values-free zone. And when we got
Well,
into
you know,
COVID,
they
those rough
came,
winds, the values of freedom and liberty didn't kick into gear.
yeah, well, I mean, you could say the rot set in when Turnbull knifed Abbott, but I mean, with all due respect to Tony, who I adore and as a friend and admire as a politician, he actually backed down, having promised to repeal Section 18C. I mean,
No, he
that
had to go, mate. Look, I agree with you. It wasn't forceful enough, but he had to go. At least
he
they
gave it a go. Yeah,
tried to do it, and it failed. And then I guess the thought was, well, why keep on trying doing something that's destined for failure? I
yeah,
disagreed, like you. I disagreed with that attitude. I think that 18C is fundamental because it's about freedom of speech. But I would say in his defence that he did try. We did take that up. We actually put it up in the Senate, if I'm not mistaken, and it failed in the Senate.
yeah. No, that's true. But my reading of it was that it failed because of the machinations within the party. It wasn't really,
Absolutely,
right. Yeah,
absolutely. Yep.
not Tony's fault. It was the party that compromised on a founding principle of the country and of the party.
Yeah.
So enough
And
about
I think you could criticise him more on Paris, mate, because somebody
yeah,
who went to an election saying that we're going to axe the carbon tax, and then went and practically signed up to. I don't think they actually signed it, but they acquiesced to the principles of Paris, and they were
right,
sending people over to Paris or to was it Copenhagen at the time or somewhere like that.
yeah, yeah.
Might have even been Scotland, the Glasgow, but whatever it was, we acquiesced, and that was a disappointment. But still, I guess that was one thing, and you had a myriad of things in the other column there of the stuff that was values based that he was doing that was right.
So, George, as you know, there's an awful amount of chatter around the country right now about what our options are. I think you ran a poll on your
Yeah.
Substack that found that most people, among your supporters anyway, favour the idea of just uniting the fringe freedom parties and overtaking the coalition. What's your feeling about that?
Yeah, well, look, man, I'm about to drop an article. I said that I was going to, because I've written so many articles the last few days, I was going to give people a breather for a while, but I lied. I'm an ex-politician. It's hard to get over
Oh,
lying.
keep it coming, George. You're one of the best. You're one of the best commentators in the country, so keep it coming.
Well, thanks, mate. But look, in my heart of hearts, I probably do think that it is time for a new outfit. And I look over to what's happened in the UK with reform, and I guess that I'm given a little bit of hope that actually it could happen. But I also, uh, play that hope against realism that this is not going to be an easy thing.
Mm.
People who think that you can just set up a political party and suddenly, we're going to be in the ascendancy. And look, I know that Jared Rennick has done this with people first. I would say I wish him well. I hope that something like that goes well. But I think the reality is when you go with your standard bearer, Jared Rennick, to an election and you don't win, and it looks like he hasn't won, and you don't get anyone else across the line, it's probably time then to fold, not time then to double down. It's probably time then to look to see who else is on the arena, how much do we agree with them, and can we consolidate rather than trying to create another force that will simply divide the vote. But in my heart of hearts, and I was a One Nation member, a One Nation candidate, remember,
Hmm.
I would even say now that not even One Nation is going to be in a position to be that third force that we need. It will simply only be a protest party. And if that's what you want, if we just want balance of power in the Senate and to go no further, great. But I actually think this country deserves more than that. It deserves a government that is populist, and that often is said as a dirty word. Mate, it's not a dirty word. Populist means of the people. What we've got in this country is not a parliament of the people, not a government of the people. That is why the primary vote of the major parties is so low, where a third of people aren't voting for them as their number one choice. That's the lowest sort of they've ever got, and it's only going to sink lower than that. What we've got is a government of bureaucrats who, and I know this is not conspiracy theory stuff, Fred, that they don't take their writing orders from the public, and that's how democracy should work. You know, people whinging to their local member of parliament. It goes to a minister. The minister goes to the department. Department then try and find the solution to the problem that's been put forward. Instead, these non-problems are emerging, and solutions to these non-problems emerging because they're dictated from above. They're dictated from the United Nations with constant treaties that
Yep.
are pulled on. Like, digital ID. Did anyone wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, I need a digital ID. I've got to call my MP about this because I don't have one"?
Yeah.
Did anyone wake up in the morning and say, "I'm very concerned about all the misinformation on the internet. We need to have a bill that combats this misinformation and disinformation"? Or was it something that the United Nations demanded? Was it something that was talked about at an infinitum over in Davos for the World Economic Forum summit? It was the latter. That is top down. That
Yeah.
is technocracy. Actually, it's a terrible form of technocracy because technocracy is supposed to be run by experts, and I think that these people are experts only in the sense that the prefix "ex" means under pressure, and "spurt" means a drip, and that's what these people are. So
I haven't heard that etymology before, but it certainly fits. We are living in the age of the expert, George, and experts have become expert, if at nothing else, at self-preservation. That's all they do, in my opinion.
And there's a
Now,
great theory on that, mate. Just aside, I just can't remember who coined the theory, but the theory about bureaucracy, and it's so true. There are two types of people that want to be public servants. You can even say this about politicians: people who have good intentions because they want to do public service for the public, and then there's other people that just want to protect their fiefdom, get in control, and you run things the way that they think should be run. And the problem is that those people rise to the top because they chase power, and the other people are busy doing good work. But the
yeah.
people who chase power are going after positions. They get the positions, and then they slowly but surely force the good people out and surround themselves with people who just think like them. So that's the problem with the Australian bureaucracy, and increasingly it's a problem with Australian politics as well.
Yeah, it reminds me of that old adage: all organisations that aren't deliberately conservative will eventually become liberal, or small l liberal, should I say. Just getting back to the Liberal Party, just for one sec, before we go, and that I think the greatest reform that the Conservative parties could propose, I don't know how easy it would be to do, but that would be for the rank and file members of the party to determine the leader, to vote for the leader. It's unusual in liberal democracies for the leader to be selected in a, like the Pope is selected in a conclave,
Yeah,
behind closed doors.
white,
So,
white smoke.
what yeah, with the smoke coming out of the top of Parliament House. Yeah. How likely would it be? Is there any hunger for a solution like that? Because that would actually boost the membership of the party,
It sure
and it would
would.
make it more democratic. Is there any hunger for that sort of reform within the Liberal Party?
I've heard some talk about it, but the talk has been on the fringes and people that aren't on the inside. I think that it's very difficult to get people to give up power that they have over that, and it shouldn't be. I agree with you that that is a great reform that would actually democratise the party, that would have more people flocking into the party so that they could be someone that votes for the leadership of the party. Um, you know, that idea has its time. I think it's yet to come. I think the Liberal Party would do well to consider it right now,
Yeah.
actually, and give the public a choice and the public some ownership, I guess, of the party, because right now no one wants to touch it. No one wants
Yeah.
to
Good
touch it. You're
point.
right; it's
Yeah.
a dead brand.
Okay, George. One last question, and this is one I think you'll be very comfortable with. The way politics is evolving these days is no longer left and right, in my
Mm.
opinion. I think, and it's not just politics, it's everywhere you look these days, it is increasingly the battle between good and evil. And in my opinion, the solution often has enormous religious overtones to it. George,
Mm.
what's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, look, again, I sometimes I try and keep the two separate, but it's becoming increasingly difficult to keep the spiritual separate to the temporal when it comes to politics, because you're right, there is an essence of evil that is actually running through our body politic, and it's becoming more and more apparent to more and more people. I agree with you that politics is fading away from the old left versus right paradigm. When you've got people up there that are wanting and defending the ability of teachers or other people to tell young boys that they can be girls, young girls that they can be boys, and actually then allowing the medical facilitation of that, and at the same time passing laws to stop anyone praying, just praying, that there could be another resolution to that problem. We have got something very, very evil indeed running through our politics. I spoke with someone who you might know, Ma Murray Emmanuel, yesterday. Bishop Ma Murray is the Facebook bishop, they call him, or TikTok bishop, where he's got a lot of his sermons that go viral. And he said to me about that particular thing about prayer being outlawed, say, by the New South Wales Parliament when it comes to prayer that's to do with concerns that LGBTIQ confused kids might have, that this is an attempt to stamp out Christianity, and it is going to get worse. And I've got to say, I very much agree with him. When I look to the UK and other nations where I see people who are silently praying in the streets, they might be half a K down the road from an abortion clinic, and a police officer rocks up and says, sir, I think you're praying, or ma'am, I think you're praying. Could you please tell me what you're praying about? Is it about the abortion clinic down the road? Well, if so, I'm placing you under arrest. I mean, that's crazy, but it's accepted these days.
And it's coming to Australia.
It already exists to an extent. I don't know about the silent prayer part of it, but there's already these no-go zones, what they call safe zones, around abortion clinics, where it's basically a no free speech zone. You can't hand out literature, wear a T-shirt, hold a banner, or anything like that that's against abortion. And I just wonder if someone was silently praying, or even overtly praying the rosary, whether they would actually get arrested in this country. That's yet to be tested.
Well, one of the aspects of that free speech, free zone around abortion clinics is that if you approach a woman entering one of those clinics and appeal to her to make a different decision, what you are doing, that ban acknowledges this. This is what you're doing, is you're appealing to her conscience that there is an alternative. That you wouldn't need your speech to be banned if it wasn't her conscience being appealed to. It would just be simply a question and answer, and she'd keep moving. But the fact that it is so disturbing that your speech needs to be curtailed is because her conscience is involved. And that's what the left side of politics is not acknowledging. But you and people like you and I are aware. Conscience is everything.
There's a very interesting thing going on here, and because of what you've just said, it's just popped into my head. So our ability, the pro-life community's ability to actually try and appeal to someone's conscience has been curtailed. At the same time, right now, the New South Wales Parliament is debating and about to vote on a bill that will actually curtail the conscience rights of medical professionals, so that they will have to perform abortions. If they are asked, they will have to perform it, even if they are a Catholic, even if they are not for abortion, they will be forced. The other option is you go and find another job. That is disgraceful. So we are going down a very, very dark road indeed.
Yeah, well, the people with a conscience are the ones who are aware of where we're heading, and hopefully we can form some sort of opposition and resistance and retain power again in this country. George, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much, and thanks for your help on the weekend. I got a huge boost on social media, and it was all thanks to you.
Well, good on you. You deserve to get it with the stuff that you write. So thanks very much, Fred.
Thanks, George.